Hello and welcome to the Patty Pod, Season 3, Episode 3. You found it, the greatest podcast in the universe. How's everybody? I hope you're well. It is Sunday, October 27th. It is 7:15 in the evening here in Brooklyn, New York. We're coming to you live from the living room, live on tape, I guess, as I have said before, live on digital, whatever you call this, not really tape. But we're coming to you from the living room. It's a quiet Sunday evening. We're in the living room because Kate is in France for work, something that she still loves doing, which is great. She's always happy to go. She was in Toulouse, in the Toulouse area, on this trip, doing lots of different cool stuff. There's some art exhibitions, and I did some touring of castles and I think some chateaus and had wonderful meals and stuff. So she's in her happy place, and it sounds like it's going pretty well with the work side of it. So that's cool. I'm happy for her. I do miss her when she leaves, but we have a pretty simple life, so things don't change too much in terms of routines. I do find myself making a number of frozen pizzas, which I actually really like. I don't know what it is. Somebody said something about Midwesterners liking frozen pizza because we didn't have as many pizza shops. I do like Trader Joe's margarita. There's a free ad, no free ads. Love it, though. I like it almost as much as, a classic New York pizza shop pizza, which might get me beat up in New York City if anyone hears that. So keep that under your hats, friends. Okay, good. We've been cruising along. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I haven't done an episode in a while. That's about the self-care, my friends. That's maybe that little tick that I just exhibited by saying I'm sorry shows maybe some work I have to do on that. But don't we all? I mean, if you were raised in the 1980s and 1990s, and for sure still today, there can be a sense that you're always needing to be productive. And I don't think self-care is counter to that. Actually, I think when you really do practice self-care, you're more productive. You're more focused. You're more in the zone. So we're going to switch real quick to the language corner. I did want to talk about in the zone this week. Speaking of 80s and 90s people, especially sports fans, you may remember that phrase. It was real popular for a while. I think some sports psychologists coined this phrase, if not a particular one, maybe a group. Anyway, it became it was in the zeitgeist, another great word. Literally means, it's German for ghost of the times, or spirit of the times is a better translation. But it was in the zeitgeist in the 90s especially. I think maybe like in reference to Michael Jordan often, or Wayne Gretzky. And they talked about athletes being in the zone. It seems to have been morphed into the phrase flow state. I think I've talked about this perhaps before on the podcast, but I love being in the zone. I'm not quite in the zone yet at my job. There's been a lot of adjustment pains for me, like growing pains, I suppose. And some of that has to do with my desire to have things very planned. Maybe my desire to have things controlled. I suppose would be another way of looking at that. I guess I didn't know quite how much I desired that, but yeah, I've had to rework a lot of what I do. I mean, it's not radically different what I'm doing this year. The hours are greater, though, and that's been a challenge to try to... I guess I have more to do, and I'm working pretty hard and pretty long hours, and, not for those of you perhaps in certain fields where you really, really crank them out. I'm not doing crazy 80-hour weeks or anything, don't get me wrong. But it's still a lot, and it feels like a lot, and that's kind of all that matters. I don't have to compare myself, to know when I feel like I'm feeling it. it's not just about the number of hours, of course, it's about the qualitative aspect. And there were some challenges for sure. My school, some of them resolved, new ones have popped up. That happens for everybody, I'm sure. But it was it's been a more difficult 6-7 weeks than I expected. My sleep hasn't been great. But anyways, I'm okay, and I'm grateful to be okay. And I think I'm getting a little bit better at my own kind of self-soothing, as they say with the little children, in redirecting my thoughts and, putting myself, loving myself, for lack of a better phrase. It's still funny to say that for me, to say that. It feels kind of touchy-feely, as we used to say, which is probably another indication of something, I suppose. But yeah, not being so hard on myself. So I'm getting better at that. I really am. And that does help with anxiety a lot. It just does. If you're in doubt about whether you should do it, well, I don't want to give advice, but when I'm in doubt about whether I should do that, I opt to be that way. Of course, I need to, take care of the things that I can take care of, but most of us are. There's very few of us that are just going willy-nilly. So if you're a fan of this podcast, my guess would be it would be helpful for you as well to err on the side of taking care of yourself and being not being hard on yourself. And it's not even like a balance that I really don't think. I do believe people who say, when you are good to yourself, when you do love yourself, you just do better work. It's a virtuous cycle upward instead of a vicious cycle. So anyway, that's what's been going on. We played hockey today. It was good. It was really good. We've got really good quality players that have come into the game in the last 4, 5, 6 years. Young people. It's fun. It's just, you can play fun, good, smart hockey. So that's been fun. What else is going on? We're going to talk a little bit. We're just going to jump into it. We got into in the zone and how much I like that idea. Something that I try to get back into instead of just this idea of productivity or cranking out items that can be measured by some kind of data. We're also data obsessed these days, right? Rather than focusing on some metric, some key performance indicator, I think it's there's a place for that, but there's also a huge place for getting into the zone, getting into the flow state, and those KPIs take care of themselves. I truly believe. I want to talk a little bit about purpose. This phrase came to me, having purpose enough, with sort of the challenge of adjusting to this new school. Can feel sometimes is this my purpose? I wonder, is this my purpose? This doesn't feel great. I have a friend her name is Sarah McCall. She's a friend from college, and she's a really fantastic writer, and she wrote a memoir called Joy Enough, which I loved. I love the title. I love the memoir too. And she went through a real tough period where her mother passed away as she was getting a divorce. It was just a double whammy. And she had big career changes, and she had a corporate position here in New York, and she left it. She had a pretty highly sought after corporate position in the food world. She was a food editor for Bon Appetit or some big brand, and she just left. She wanted to be a writer, and so she went and got her MFA in writing. And it wasn't all roses and sunshine. And that's what she writes about, having joy enough. And anyway, I think sometimes having purpose enough. And also this idea that your purpose isn't just your job, right? Maybe you kind of do a support role or something like that. And you might think that you're not making a big impact. But you probably are having more of an impact. I know there's a young lady at my school who comes at the end of the day, and helps with the after school program, and she's massively important because I'm able to get a lot of work done because she's there, and I can I don't know what I would do without her, and I don't know what she feels. She might not feel like it's it's not a super high paid position. She's a college student, but so you have people have impact, I think, that they don't know about, and I also think that, there's so many other roles that you play, right? Sister, husband, niece, friend, acquaintance even. I got all these guys that I'm acquainted with at hockey, and they all mean a lot to me. Together we make these games, and we have this fellowship, as some of my friends like to say. I like that word, fellowship, and it's huge. So a little bit about purpose. I want to talk about riding in an Uber. When we flew to Los Angeles en route to LA, we got into an Uber, and it was late at night as LAX. It was like 12:30. My man Lawrence picked us up, and he was just belting. Not only was belting, he was playing gospel music very loudly in the car. My man was belting along, just belting. Jesus, come to me. We gotta be together. Oh, you and me. It was just like something along those lines. It was, I was half sort of, not offended, but a little bit felt like, whereas I think we need to be a part of this decision. Like we're clients here, but more, not half, maybe a third kind of felt that way. Like, hey man, like I think you just need to ask if this is okay, which he definitely did not do. But like I guess 2/3 of me felt sort of like kind of loved it. Like he was a lovable guy. And I was beat. I was super exhausted. We traveled during that Great Glitch episode back in the summer, and we had a terrible experience. Not terrible, but a frustrating experience coming out. We were stuck in the Newark airport until like 2:33 in the morning because our flight got pushed back, and we were desperately trying to find a way to get to LA so that we didn't miss our connecting flight to Japan. We did end up missing that. It cost us a lot of money. Anyway, so by the time we had to go back to Brooklyn and then go back to New Jersey, it was a long trip. So when we finally got our flight out to LA, it's like a 6-hour flight or whatever. Like I was not in the mood to be chit-chatty at all. And there's Lawrence just belting out the gospel. He had his towel. He was one of those black guys that kind of carries a towel everywhere. He was wiping his brow. I think because he was working up a sweat from belting out those tunes. Guy could sing. Don't get me wrong. Lawrence was a hell of a singer. Yeah, but it was a hilarious experience. And then it was like we started chatting a little bit in the back about that LA has these motorized little carts that go on the street. They're like robot kind of things. Somehow they drive themselves down the street to deliver stuff for people. And Lawrence jumped into the conversation, and I was just like, it's such a weird experience when you're with one other person in an Uber, because if you start chatting, I still don't know sort of the etiquette for, should I be including the driver in the conversation? If he jumps in, do I then make sure I keep him in the conversation? These are things an empath thinks about, especially somebody who is a son of my father who talks to people. He will literally talk to a stranger on a 15-second elevator ride. So I used to really like to do it, but as I got older and more tired, I'm less inclined. And so I had to think about, I still want to be polite. So it prompted that question. Want to talk a little bit about the power of scent. When I was in Japan, I was at this train station, this big bustling train station above ground. And it was trains going in all different directions, and there was hundreds of people, thousands of people, and we could see the city all around. It was bustling, crazy. And I loved it, but I caught this whiff of something that smelled rubbery and a specific cleaning product. And it instantly brought me back to this hockey camp that I went to when I was 11, which was in Bemidji, Minnesota, northern Minnesota. Pretty quiet place, surrounded by trees. There's a big lake around there, and such a different place than this train station. And I was instantly calmed. And I wasn't I was on vacation. It wasn't like I was stressed out or anything, but I think, I'm somebody who I'm sensitive enough that when I'm in new places, even on vacation, I can get thrown a little bit by the food differences and trying to figure out the signs, and just sort of maybe I was feeling a little bit worn out a little bit by some of the busyness and craziness of the city of Tokyo, and it was also super hot. and I'd had some indigestion because I ate something that had, I think, some meat or like a little bit of uncooked egg, which is, anyway, so I was, feeling a little ill at ease, and then I smelled that and like had this instant calm, which is crazy. I've had some of those moments before. I've always heard that scent is the most sort of nostalgic of all the senses, and not only did I experience that, but I also experienced how calming it can be, and how it could, I don't know, it brought me back to some kind of feeling of it was not just like safety because I was a kid and, people taking care of you, but also the joy I had when I was playing at this hockey camp, because it was just hockey all day, every day, and I loved it. Speaking of Japan, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I started to notice that a lot of notable restaurants that we had been reading about would only be getting like 3.5 ratings on like Google Maps or whatever I was looking at in Japan. I was like, wow, like that's kind of low. And Kate said that that's actually would be considered a good score because the Japanese are known to be such tough critics. That really became apparent when I looked up Mount Fuji on Google Maps. Now, Mount Fuji, of course, is a famous mountain. You can see it on a clear day from some like high rises in Tokyo. It's been painted 8 million times. It's considered sacred in Japan, which I know because the Japanese almost always mention that fact, like in the descriptions that they write about Mount Fuji, the sacred Mount Fuji. Yet on Google Maps, they only gave this divine presence a 4.6. A 4.6 for like a holy mountain. I didn't read any of the reviews, but I just imagined there's something, I'd be like, well, slightly asymmetrical. Wasn't impressed by that. I liked, I could feel its aura, but it wasn't quite as magnificent. I don't know what the reviews are, but holy moly, Japanese consumers, please take it easy. Hammer don't hurt 'em, as we used to say in the 90s. I was thinking about, going back to the language corner, I was thinking about a George Michael song the other day. George Michael had a hilarious line when he sings, I think it's Freedom. It's from the song Freedom, Freedom. And he goes, sometimes the clothes do not make the man, and all I want to see, that part. And I was just like, who's he singing to? Sometimes the clothes do not make the man. Is there some listener of his, some buddy of his, that was like, wait, what? The clothes don't make the man? Then what makes the man? I don't know. I love fashion as much as the next guy, more than, I have an interest, I think, more than a lot of guys. And I know George Michael's a gay man, and gay men are really into fashion, so maybe like really, really into it. I know that part of the gay community, but I mean, come on. I also know that they're not so into fashion that they would think that would totally make the man. So I always thought that was funny that I've never heard anyone comment on that line. Like, thanks. Yeah, you're right, George Michael. It's not just about the clothes. We got to remember that. I'm 45 years old in a couple weeks, knock on wood. I seem to be in pretty good health. Coming up here in November. I just went to the doctor. Everything's pretty good, pretty smooth, which to me feels like about halfway. I did a couple midlife crises earlier in my life, got those out of the way, so I'm not expecting one. But it does, I don't know what the life expectancy is for a man in America. I've heard it's gone down a little bit, I think, since COVID. I don't know if that's maybe like sort of like kind of an artificial lowering of it, but in any case, it feels like 90 will probably be about right. Maybe I'll live to 100. One doesn't want to tempt the fates, but in any case, I've thought about that for the last few years. Like, I'm coming up on 45, and I just think, wow, halfway. There are some things I know for sure. I know that getting married to Kate was the right move. It was one of the best moves that I made. I know that quitting drinking was a really great move for me. I know that changing careers was the right move, despite it being uncomfortable right now. Continuing to do this podcast is the right move. I see the stats of listenership. It goes up and down. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. But I'm glad I'm doing it. I'm not doing it. I would love for it to be, I think I would love for it to be my full-time job. I don't even know. If I could do it my way, I would. But I would like it to grow. I would like it to grow to just kind of give me an option like that. But even if it never did, and even if it shrank, if its listenership shrank, which I know what you're thinking, how is that possible? This is the greatest podcast in the universe, as I mentioned at the top. Goes without saying, but sometimes you just gotta call a spade a spade. Even if it did go down, it was still, it's worth doing. Creativity in all its forms is worthwhile. So, but it's interesting to know that I have some things that I know for sure. I don't know what's coming, of course, but I never would have imagined some things in my 20s. I would never have imagined that I'd be doing what I do for work when I was in my 20s. I was sort of hell-bent on first being an academic and then kind of going in the corporate route, and same thing in my 30s. So it'll be interesting. I've kind of learned that I really like predicting my own life is seemingly impossible, and predicting the direction of the world is most certainly impossible, for me, at least. I noticed a couple weeks ago that I love the hum of an HVAC machine. I don't know why, but I find it really meditative. It's funny, it's not the sound of nature, which I think maybe people would think of. And I guess this is a little turn to the spirituality corner. It's not a babbling brook or wind rustling the leaves of a tree, but it's got this it sort of reminds me of minimalist music, this sort of repetitive thing. And I don't know, I've been in certain rooms, maybe waiting for somebody. I talked about being in waiting rooms where I can just, I can think because I felt like I've done what I need to do. I've got myself to this place, and now I'm waiting for whatever, the barber, the doctor, or whatever, and I can really let myself chill out. And I love that. There's just like a hum. It's just in Indian music, they have something called a drone, where it's like a one note that's played continuously. Often it's a low note, and it just kind of like, I don't know what it's like, a through line is, sort of obviously, if you think about the sheet music, I suppose. But yeah, there's something about that hum that just kind of like, maybe it's some vibration of the earth that it's mirroring or something, but I think I like the uniformity. I wrote a little bit about it. I did like, it's a balance of uniformity and change. Sometimes the sound change, but usually it's slight and usually in a pattern, it'll like, I don't know, downshift or something, and, the tone changes. But it moves through time, so just, from one moment to the next, that's a different point in time, so that's always some change. So there's change, and then there's uniformity, because it's either got a pattern, or it just stays at the same place. And I think that's just, I think that's a human need. We need uniformity until we can plan and predict. I certainly, as I talked about earlier, love to plan and predict as much as I can. But also, that can be stultifying, of course, and we need change as well. And oftentimes the change that I've had has been a good thing. I'll talk a little bit about grandeur. I think I keep talking about it, but it keeps becoming a theme for me. I seek it out. I see it in cloud formations, especially when they appear to be exploding in upwards in great plumes, and when those plumes get dramatically lit by the sunlight. They seem stately, powerful, and triumphant. They're like a cathedral ceiling times a trillion. And sometimes if I'm wise, I stop and really appreciate it. I remember when I was a kid and I was a teenager, riding in the back of my friend's car it was a long trip back from like the Twin Cities, or I think maybe we had been, I don't know, a couple hours outside of our hometown of Duluth. And I think we were like had gone to a party or something, and I was like kind of hungover or tired or whatever. And my buddy was driving, and I just laid down in the back and just noticed these beautiful cloud formations that were really dramatically lit by the sunlight. And it was like I could hear the angels singing. It just looked glorious. So that's been something that has kept popping up for me. I don't know why. I've been going to the Met a lot on the weekends. I just keep going back, partly because it's free. It's true, but obviously there's lots of other free things you can do. And there's a main stairwell when you come in the main entrance. That's this, big grand marble staircase with columns, and at the very top there's this enormous, I think it's a Renaissance or Baroque painting. It's of some kind of Italian general marching. He's got like a Egyptian general held captive. It's meant to be, it's propaganda, but it's glorious. And so I see that grandeur, and obviously there's just like masterpieces everywhere in that place. And so I like being surrounded by that beauty, and I like being surrounded by that grandeur. I was watching a video on Plato, and he talked about why humans respond, like so many people respond to beauty, and Plato surmised that it was because there's something about beauty that reminds us or exhibits something noble in humanity, temperance or charity or love or courage or something. And I can see that, something in maybe the balance or the harmony of beauty that can be brought about by courage and by peacefulness and by love, I think, more than anything. And so I have been seeking grandeur and beauty as much as I can. And I'll leave you on one last note. I did hear somebody that I like, that talked about the importance of just lightening up, and that is going to be my theme. I know there's times that I'm not going to be the lightest, but I'm going to just remember just to lighten up. You really can. I shouldn't preach. I shouldn't say you. It's been really helpful to me. No matter what's going on, I know that there's something greater beyond me, and that I can really lighten up, and it always helps. I think maybe I mentioned this before, but I read a book by the runner Kara Goucher, who's a woman that I grew up with. She went to my elementary school and then all the way up through high school, and she talked about how they're taught, as she was an elite marathoner, was at one point the best marathoner in America, and she talked about how runners are taught to stay relaxed, and that's why when you watch sprinters on slow motion, it looks like their face is just hanging there. They're going so fast that it bounces around like crazy, but the reason it bounces around like crazy is because they're taught to run as relaxed as they can, and that actually improves your performance. And so to me, I'm taking that as permission. So I hope everyone's well. I hope you guys are doing well. I am going to announce that I'm going to switch up the format of the Patty Pod coming up. I'm going to try to focus more on one theme. Sure, we will branch off of that theme and, be ad hoc at moments when the inspiration strikes. But I'm going to try to be a little bit more focused, and I'm going to start interviewing some people. I'm going to lay down my what do I want to say? There's a phrase that I can't think of. Like lay down my stake or lay down my marker or something. That's what I'm trying to think of. My marker that I'm going to do no celebrities. Not that I know a lot. I know one. I know Tim Robbins, the actor, because I used to play hockey with him. But I don't even know if he knows my real name. They call me Nightmare at that hockey group. So he knows me as Nightmare. But in any case, not that I could get any celebrities on, but I actually have no interest in talking to celebrities. I have nothing against them, but I just want to talk to people like regular friends of mine, because I think they have just, many riches to share, much knowledge and wisdom and insight, and I believe that everyone is on their own very important mission and journey, for lack of a better word. I talked about that word. I think I'm using it okay. I'm going to allow myself to say it. And, I want to hear people's thoughts, their reflections on certain things. So not really like super, narrow. I'm probably going to be talking about broader topics that are obviously important to people. Things like work and love and fatherhood and, hope and grit and all these sort of virtues and important things that we think about. So look for that. It's going to be coming up. I may do another one or two in this format, but in our traditional format, but I am going to start looking into the interviews, and I want to hear some other voices. I think a dialogue would be a nice addition and a nice change. So I hope everyone's doing well. I hope the week ahead is going to be a productive and fruitful one, whatever may come. And we'll talk soon. Peace and love.